Hello there, welcome to this program about the Cial, which I'm sure you know will be taking place in Paris between the 15th and the 19th of October. My name is Alex Taylor, I'm a journalist, and like you, I'm sure I'm very excited to find out about all the latest innovations in the world of agri-food. We're going to hear a lot from the Cial Insights survey about the very latest trends throughout the world, and to tell us more about what's going to be on the program of the Cial this year, I'm delighted to welcome Nicolas Trontesaut, who's the General Manager of SAL, together with Audrey Ashworth, who's the Show Director of Cial Paris. So they're here. Hello, bonjour. I'm sure you're going to tell us about some very exciting happenings. Let's start with you, Nicolas.
Bonjour, Alex. Thank you very much. So, well, do I need to tell you that we are living in a very complex world, you know, that sounds like we have been through a washing machine in the last 3 years, as you can imagine. So without inducing too much anxiety, it's good to recall that we have been through many crises. I mean, the first one being, of course, the sanitary crisis, with the fear of COVID, of course, and the impact on the food consumption. Remember that the restaurants have been closed and that people had to reconnect with food by, you know, cooking at home. And they've reconnected with the pleasure of actually cooking and sharing food. But on top of the sanitary crisis, we have many more crises. We have, of course, the ongoing current geopolitical crisis happening right now. It's unsettling all the markets, you know, energy, wheat, oil, and leading to a lot of inflation. This is an economical crisis where we have like from 6 to 12% inflation, so it's impacting the purchasing power of the consumers. It's, of course, an ecological crisis as well, climate change, heat waves, etc. But on top of that, we can also say that we have some kind of a conscious crisis. Indeed, the consumers are becoming more and more aware of the impact of their consumption, not only on the environment, but also on the people around them. And so there's some kind of fear about the ability of us all to produce enough food for the growing population. There's even a growing conscience for animal welfare. So you see there's lots of questioning, and it is just showing that consumers are looking for more and more sense. So in this chaotic context, there are probably many good reasons not to do anything, to stay well hidden and wait for better time, or not, actually. And quite the opposite. In fact, we believe that in this kind of chaotic world, it is important to react and to give exhibitors some clear guidelines to help them to understand what's happening around them and how they should behave in this new world. So we need to identify new markers to better decrypt the trends and actually help the food companies to make the good decisions and to commit to medium-term objectives. So at Cial Paris, we are very much convinced that a crisis period is actually a good time, a good platform to accelerate change. It is the right moment to reinvent the business model and to step change our processes to actually face the challenges ahead of us. So to feed the planet, we know about the 10 billion people by 2050. So for that, we need quantity, we need quality, we need sustainability, we need responsibility, and we need, of course, affordability. So the brief is very clear. So now, how do we do it? We believe it is time to turn this crisis into opportunities. The future is bright for those who can see through the clouds. So let us help the food companies to better see through the clouds. Let's help them to decrypt the trends and weak signals. This is the main purpose, actually, of Cial Paris. We need to bring strong studies to highlight the trends and explain what is happening now and what is going to happen in the future. And we need to federate and mobilize all the positive energies to make things happen. This is the true meaning of our Own the Change motto. So all the food companies will be meeting in Cial Paris in October 22. It will be the first worldwide meeting since 2019. And of course, there will be a lot to discover.
And in time of confusion, only expertise, inspiration, and connection are allowed to rise above and shape our future. To quote Frank, we are no longer able to change a situation. We are challenged to change ourselves. We must therefore be modest and humble, but act at our scale with determination. And that's why we chose On the Change as our main theme. Gather, inspire, facilitate. These are precisely the role of Cial Paris. Expert in the food and beverage sectors for 60 years, Cial Paris provides strategic insight to decipher the current challenges. Entirely focused on prospective, Cial Paris detects and guides those who invent and those who want to support them. Arising from its event organizer's role, Cial Paris brings together tomorrow key players from the food industry and invite them to partake in the conversation, to actively contribute to the solution, since at Cial Paris, not only are you a visitor, but you're also an actor of the change. It is through collaboration of all that we will succeed in creating what the future of agri-food must be. Cial Paris is the international must-attend event to tackle these issues head-on, so that the consumer has the choice and the means to take its own transition. #On the Change.
One of the most interesting things about the Cial each time is who will be the patron. Why is there a patron and who will it be this year? Nicolas, tell us more.
So why do we choose a famous chef as a patron for Cial Paris? Well, I guess it's like attending a fashion show. You know, it's food art at its best. And also, you know, restaurants are very often the food lab of the industry. That's where innovation starts. That's where inspiration starts. So we have had the pleasure to welcome many chefs over the last 3 years. We don't just want Michelin stars. We want really characters that are committed to, of course, creativity, food creativity for pleasure. But they also need to be committed to create getaways between gastronomy and food industry. And finally, they also need to be clear advocate of, the better food, better living. So some very famous chefs have opened the way in the last few years. Joël Robuchon in 2016, Yannick Aleno in 2018, Dominique Rennes in 2020. So for 2022, we have decided to really find a character that will represent Own the Change, our motto. So this character, we like him very much for so many reasons. One, he is from Argentina, but he is almost married with France. He is as much of a gardener as of a chef. And he's of course a star. He's got the 3 Michelin stars. He's got an 18 out of 20 on Goemio. And he is even elected the best restaurant of the world. So let's discover what he's got to tell us.
Bonjour à tous, le Cial est de retour et je suis heureux d'avoir pu accepter d'être les parents de cette édition. Les engagements de ce salon vis-à-vis de l'alimentation mondiale, de la consommation et de la fabrication des aliments pour une nourriture meilleure pour tous était quelque chose que je prends au quotidien comme un grand engagement. De mon côté, par exemple, au Mirasur, dans mon restaurant au sud de la France, nous avons obtenu la certification Plastic Free. Depuis cette certification, ça nous a changé énormément la façon de concevoir notre quotidien. Nous avons aussi 5 hectares de jardins potagers qu'on cultive en permaculture et en biodynamie, ce qui nous permet d'être presque autosuffisants à 70% des légumes qu'on consomme dans le restaurant. Le reste, on travaille qu'avec des petits producteurs locaux qui font une agriculture raisonnée locale. J'ai aussi une chaîne de burgers à une échelle beaucoup plus importante qui a été certifiée B Corp. Cette certification, très difficile d'obtenir, des triple impact, locale, sociale et environnementale, nous a permis d'être la première chaîne de burgers au monde à avoir été certifiée. Je pense qu'il est temps que notre profession entre dans l'ère de la gastronomie circulaire. Chaque fois qu'on décide ce qu'on mange, on décide le monde qu'on veut vivre demain. On the Change est avant tout un challenge individuel à portée collective. Le monde, lui, il a déjà changé. À nous de le rattraper.
So we are happy and proud to welcome Chef Mauro Colagreco as patron of this 2022 edition. We share with him this desire to embark on the path of change. More than ever, this edition will be focusing on the major issues related to the many structural and conjunctural challenges that impact the ecological transition and thus the food transition.
Cial Insights is a research lab which studies trends in agri-food. It follows the studies of 3 partner expert groups on consumer expectations, food innovation and restaurant behavior. I'm delighted to have me round the table to talk about this. Karine Perrault, your expert food director of Insights at Division of Kantar.
Yes, Kantar has been partnering with the Cial for 10 years now with a survey called Food 360, interviewing consumers all around the world about their food expectations, their behaviors, and how they see the food actors in 11 zones.
Okay, perfect. Solène Dutt, your innovation expert at Protein XTC.
Yes, indeed. We are a consulting agency specialized in innovation strategy and communication for the food industry.
And Maria Bertak, your business development director at NPD Group.
Yes, so we partner with Cial for the first year. NPD Group is a global market research agency, and we are specialized in consumer and distributor panels. And for Cial, we share the data from our CREST panel, which is a golden standard for food service markets.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we're going to have one theme which is across the board, which is transitional food, and 4 trends. So let's find out what they are straight away.
Consumers are projecting themselves in their consumption, and they are as demanding as ever and becoming more and more savvy. They have integrated the new good habits in terms of health, local products, sustainability, even if their choices are still motivated by a strong sense of pleasure, a consumption trend that is becoming more established. For the past 3-4 years, there's been a shift in eating behaviors. As in 2020, still 3/4 of consumers consider that they have changed their habits in the last 2 years. A mutation that even tends to accelerate further in Asia and in the Middle East, where we continue to recruit new supporters on healthy, sustainable, or local products. Health, supported by naturalness, is still the #1 expectation without neglecting pleasure. 7 people out of 10 are looking for healthy, authentic, additive-free, or even 100% natural products. And finally, the consumer expects less innovation for innovation's sake, but rather the improvement of the existing offer to make it better and as natural as possible. 63% of consumers consider the food choices they make as civil acts, which condition the world they want to live in. Moreover, they recognize the efforts made by the actors of the food industry to transform themselves, even if they believe that there is still a long way to go. 7 consumers out of 10 admit that they sometimes give in to temptation for products that they consider a little too rich for pure pleasure. But beware, some consumers declare that they are not ready to pay more for a better basic food, for which they consider that the qualitative responsibility lies primarily with companies, a proportion that is likely to grow in the coming months, especially in the countries most affected by inflation.
We are seeing a form of radicalization of promises made on products. So for example, for pleasure, we have more and more sophisticated products with a wide variety of tastes and stronger sensations. We also see an increase of health promises for safer and more functional products, and even medical. And of course, ethical and environmental promises are very prevalent in the innovative offer. Manufacturers have very clearly understood that these expectations are anchored in consumer demand, not temporarily, but in the long-term perspective. The offer is trying to respond to them more than ever. In the inflationary context that we are experiencing due to the COVID pandemic and recent events in Ukraine, food innovations must justify their price because consumers are more demanding. They no longer simply expect a good quality price ratio, but also a good benefit price ratio with a tangible benefit that justifies the price. A common global goal is to make healthy eating for oneself and for the planet accessible to the largest number of people. So finding the right benefit-price ratio is probably the greatest challenge for the food industry today and tomorrow.
NPD Group studies with its unique consumer panel out-of-home consumption around the world. And what we know today, that the key word about this consumption is out-of-premise consumption. People now take food and beverages out of the places where they were bought, whether it was with click and collect or via delivery or buying things in retail. NPD, covering 13 countries around the world, with about 60% of global spend in food service, found that the actual traffic today is still minus 14% compared to pre-COVID era 2019. Inversely, the average check progressed by 4% due to the inflation, due to the cost of raw materials, and also due to the fact that delivery increased, and delivery usually has higher average check. We need also to mention the factor that changed our life forever. This is remote working and the way people now eat at home instead of going to the offices and going to the food service canteens. Today, food service canteens function at 60–70% of their pre-COVID traffic capacity. And in the end, to go out of the actual crisis, food service should reinvent itself, and mainly this is a new hybrid model for the restaurants that combine the best of two worlds, full service restaurant and quick service restaurants, moving to something hybrid as, for example, fast casual.
Health, supported by naturalness, remains the #1 expectation with an extra dose of pleasure. 2/3 of consumers say that they have changed their habits for a healthier diet in the last 2 years, with certain nuances depending on the country. In Germany, people are looking for a balanced diet, including pleasure. In Spain, there is less focus on naturalness due probably to a more complicated economic situation. In Israel, health, this is staying fit and also boosting your immune system. In China, people are very worried about their health and really demand naturalness. While in Southeast Asia and India, food and health are traditionally very linked, and there is also a great need for transparency. In the US, we witnessed a recent move towards eating well and health concerns, while in the UK, well, this is the country most behind in terms of attachment to health. Healthy pleasure products, this is a must-have that has become a basic. 7 out of 10 consumers are looking for healthy, authentic products with simple recipes, little processed, without additives, or even 100% natural. An important conjunctural expectation is for products that strengthen your immune system with superfoods or super products. This is particularly true in Spain, in Italy, in Israel, and also in Asia, where consumers are worried about their health, and especially in China. Finally, consumers recognize the efforts of food actors, to improve the control over health risks, and we have plus 2 points on the recognition of efforts to ensure product safety and product security. Of note, the survey was conducted just before the April 22 incidents in France.
The World Food Offer is more transparent than ever in terms of composition. That's because consumers are more careful about the composition and the ingredients in the products they buy. They look for information by reading product labels, using apps that provide product ratings. With this in mind, we have observed several trends in product evolution. First of all, improving the existing product with more and more promises of reduced fat, sugar, salt, which are very visible on pack. In contrast to previous low-fat or low-sugar products, they guarantee the same pleasure and even more. So, for example, a chocolate powder has less sugar but more chocolate, so a stronger taste in the end. The reduction of alcohol content and the development of alcohol-free drinks without losing the pleasure of drinking it is also the same thing. Improving the recipes by simplifying and limiting the number of ingredients to improve the perceived naturality of the products. And that's also why we are witnessing a reduction of certain additives and ingredients which have a bad reputation, such as palm oil or nitrate salt, even though their use is legally authorized. We see that consumers are increasingly looking for healthy products, and more precisely products with a particular health functionality. There's a clear increase in the offer of products with an immunity promise. The COVID crisis was a powerful accelerator for this, since products with immunity claims were multiplied by 8 within the first year after the start of the pandemic. For the same reason, innovation with benefits on the microbiota continue to increase, mainly based on the use of ferments, so for dairy products or drinks such as kombucha or kefir. To a lesser extent, we are witnessing the development of new products targeting mental health, for memory with a growing older population, or promises of relaxation and stress relief with mostly the use of CBD.
The fact that we just crossed the pandemic during 2 years of COVID era now has changed our way of consuming in food service. First of all, during the pandemic, consumers have chosen more of comfort food, for example, desserts or some traditional meals that they used to eat when they were kids. But on the other side, consumers are still worried about restaurants that for 40% of Europeans are still considered as risky places to be to get COVID-19. So based on this, we have a really new attention that people pay to the health consumption when they go to the restaurant. 67% of consumers told us that they prefer restaurants with simple and clear menus to be reassured by the fact that products are fresh, natural, and of the season. 53% of the consumers affirm that they will eat healthy products during their snacking occasions. Finally, 35% of consumers tell us that they will choose healthy meal compared to pre-pandemic period. And finally, 22% of interviewed people told us that they reduced their consumption of sugar.
A great majority of consumers consider that choosing their food is a civil act which conditions the world they want to live in. And there are certain nuances depending on the country. In China, people are more and more demanding about environmental issues and waste reduction. In the Middle East, there's a growing attraction for local production and transparent information. In the US, there's a new interest in organic and local food. And there are also important disparities between European countries. In France, for example, a strong appeal towards local produce, support to local producers. In Italy, they are very advanced on ecology, animal welfare, and fair trade. And the United Kingdom is the most behind in terms of the importance of the environment and local food. 40% of consumers are making their food more plant-based, and the trend is more pronounced in Germany, Spain, Italy, and also in the Middle East. Also note that 35% of people have reduced or even stopped their meat consumption because they are aware of the impact of production on the world. The interest for organic food is rather stable or even decreasing because there's a value-price gap. 14% of consumers are not willing to pay more for better basic food, and this is especially true in China and in Spain. So if in the US the interest in organic food continues to progress, it is rather in decline in France. Indeed, sales of certain categories in organic have decreased, and also in Spain, where inflation is the highest among the countries we surveyed. Finally, consumers are aware of and appreciate the efforts made by the food actors to transform themselves, even if there is some way to go, still some way to go. Progress is recognized in favor of the environment, ethics, methods and processes, reducing waste, and finally, food safety. And the areas where efforts are most expected are the reduction of plastics and carbon footprint. 65% of consumers prefer products with the least amount of packaging possible or using recycled materials.
The innovative offer with an ethical or environmental promise has developed tremendously in recent years. They account for nearly 8% of food innovation in the world in 2021 and up to 12% of launches in France. Promises of local production or sourcing of the ingredients have developed the most. They answer a strong consumer expectation to support local employment. And they are also seen as more environmental friendly since they can be associated with a limited carbon footprint. Promises linked to packaging materials have developed also considerably, with reduction or changes of materials going to recyclable, recycled, compostable, or less plastic altogether. The absence of packaging goes to the bulk offer, which has slowed down because of the COVID pandemic for obvious hygiene reasons. But well-known brands will likely contribute to the development of this type of distribution in the future by offering their own branded products in bulk. Production processes are also questioned, mostly for organic farming, which has known a strong development in the world but is slowing down in certain countries. The challenge for the industry will be to make it either more accessible to recruit new consumers or to go towards enhanced organic with more promises than just organic to justify the higher prices. To finish with, how can we not mention plant-based food, which promotes plant-based ingredients in all forms and includes the development of animal product substitutes. First of all, for meat, with more or less processed options depending on how much they try to resemble real meat. For fish, with tuna and salmon substitutes which are launching, but the market is still very new. And for dairy products, we have known yogurt substitutes for a while. The new ones are made from almond, oats or coconut. The plant-based cheese offer is growing, driven by startups and also major world groups.
The results of NPD study find that consumers are more and more attentive to the sustainability in the restaurants and in food service. If in 2020 only 53% mentioned that sustainability is an important thing for the restaurants, in December 2021 they are 69% to mention the same thing. Among the top 3 items that were highlighted are the reduction of waste, the using of local products and using of seasonal products as well. So when choosing a restaurant, 61% of consumers tell us choose the restaurants that use local products and local ingredients. Then 53% tell us that it's important for a restaurant to have sustainability policy. And finally, an important thing that is linked to the reduction of meat consumption is that vegan offer is really growing in food service. 29% of the consumers told us that they prefer a restaurant that have a vegetarian or vegan options, and among UK consumers, this number is even higher, 35%.
Pleasure is present when people are looking for more natural and responsible food, but indulgent, comfort food remains a strong dimension. The need for conviviality, emotions, and sensations also play an important role. Pleasure is definitely an important trend in the world of food. And since the pandemic and the successive lockdown, it has taken on special significance. 4 in 10 consumers indulged with comfort food during the pandemic. It's more than 40% in the US and Italy, and up to 60, even 70% in Asia, who said they indulged more during and post-pandemic with gourmet and comfort food, perhaps a little too fat, too sweet, or too salty. And France and Germany are actually the most reasonable. There's also a revival of homemade cooking. With the closure of restaurants and canteens during the successive confinements, more than half of consumers say they cook more than in the past. And this development of homemade food is actually at the crossroads of several expectations. First, the search for natural products, the control of the ingredients, but also the pleasure of cooking and sharing, and finally also the control of the budget. And with the inflation on the rise, the budgetary dimension will continue and thus reinforce this homemade trend. Moreover, with the development of remote working, optimization is going to become more and more important for quick and easily manageable cooking.
Innovation related to the pleasure of eating is still the most prevalent axis of innovation in the world, and it's true as well in every country. Panel studies also show that these are still the best-selling products. The COVID pandemic has highlighted this phenomenon with products that could be described as comfort food. They provide reassurance and make you feel better when daily life gets tough. Pleasure through food involves multisensory experiences, so first of all with tastes, which are stronger and more intense, particularly due to ingredients such as truffle, ginger or saffron, but also with natural processes such as infusion, fermentation or maturation. We can see a mix of textures as well, with crunchy, crispy and melting within the same product. Pleasure is also an imaginary experience through food with exotic products and the development of recipes from Korea, Central Africa, and a double promise of powerful taste and naturality. The offer with pleasure promises can be sophisticated and premium, and it's still developing in that area with the communication around local know-how.
So since the reopening of the restaurants after the COVID crisis, people started to go back because among the key motivations were the motivations of socializing, just being with each other, being with their families outside. So full-service restaurants as well as quick-service restaurants, they developed a lot of offers, really working of this pleasure side of eating out, meaning that now they have more cocktail offers, aperitif offers, different desserts and other meals to share. So all this is very important for pleasure, but it's also another point that is important. It's the point about the budget. So now with the growing prices and growing inflation, especially families, they look very, very closely at what they spend in food service. And as a result, we asked our consumers, European consumers, what are your strategies to spend smart in food service today? And so 1/3 of consumers told us, I will just reduce a little bit the frequency of my visits. But the good news is 55% told us, I will continue to go to the restaurants. I will just change my strategy in terms of maybe buying a little bit less items or seeking for promotions or eventually going to some cheaper segments. So in the end, if we speak about the price, it's an important element, but it's not the only element that consumer takes into account when he or she decides to go out, because if the consumer sees the value of the offer, about the atmosphere of the place, about the quality of product, they are ready to pay a little bit more for the value perceived.
The first major trend when it comes to digital is the growth of e-commerce share of the food market, which continues to increase. Nearly 15% growth in 2021 after a growth of about 50% in 2020. At the time of the pandemic, 40% of consumers are now shopping online. Second trend, food scanning applications. 30% declare to use them. And when you think that one consumer out of two declares to be very active in searching for information on what they eat, these digital applications have the potential to change their choices and their behaviors.
There are two visible effects of digitalization in the product offer. First of all, for distribution and access to the product with delivery and click and collect food shopping. The COVID pandemic caused the massive arrival of new consumers, particularly older consumers who appreciated and continued to use the service afterwards. Quick commerce is developing with at-home delivery of food shopping within 10 minutes after you ordered the food. But there's also new forms of 24/7 distribution without employees, such as container shops. Beyond delivery, more services around the products are made available thanks to digital tools. First of all, nutritional personalized coaching with apps. And also, it's the level of consumer information available via apps that has changed, with providing ratings of products based on ingredients, respect for the environment, animal welfare, fair pay for farmers. We have moved from a marketing of promises to a marketing of proof, and in the future, the blockchain technology will likely accentuate this phenomenon.
So digitalization in food service, it was really revolutionary with COVID, because we really gained, I would say, 2 or 3 years in boosting this digital approach to food service. So now our mobile phone has become a new high street where you can find any place to eat, just ordering on your aggregator app or on your favorite restaurant app. And now, since the restaurants reopened, we can also use special automated services to order, or we can use tablets in full-service restaurants. So we have 37% of European consumers that tell us we order regularly through an app. This level is very different from one country to another. For example, in Germany, they are only 25 to order through an app. Main orders still go through the phone. So the digitalization level is different from one country to another. And finally, speaking about the total weight of these digital orders in the market, it's still relatively low. We have from 7 to 10% of all food service orders going through digital channel. But there are some countries where it's way more important. For example, United Kingdom has 18% of digital orders, meaning that one customer out of 5 orders through a digital channel.
Thank you very much indeed, ladies. That was very interesting. Thank you for your very hard work. It's now my pleasure to welcome Nicolas Trontesaut. Nicolas, I think you have some words to say.
Thank you very much. So it's a great honor to have so many experts around us, and it's such a pleasure to be able to share across a worldwide presentation of trends. So what is striking? Well, first of all, the consumers have finally gone through this crisis pretty well, at least in terms of food perspective. So the circumstances have even sharpened their belief and convictions. Through the confinement, they have reconnected with food, with cooking, with sharing the pleasure of eating and sharing with their family and friends. So through the sanitary crisis, they've also realized the importance of living in harmony with nature. So they are even more committed to social care, to environment care, to animal welfare. So many things looking for senses, for sure. So they have sharpened their view, and actually they're becoming more and more demanding and aware, and they want to be in control of their food consumption. So they want to control, they want pleasure, that's for sure, that's the key element of food always, but not just pleasure, they want pleasure and health, they want pleasure and social and environmental responsibility, they want pleasure and affordability. So they are now actively changing their consumer behaviors. 7 out of 10 have already changed their purchasing habits. So some key learnings, I mean, we talked about pleasure, we talked about naturality, social and environmental responsibility. But what's important at the end is to have a coherent mix so that people can really understand the products. Finally, the core trends we had identified and shared in 1918 about pleasure, health, and meaning are still very, very much the same. Just we've added a fourth trend, being the affordability. And this is, of course, enhanced by the current inflation, 4 to 12% on food around the world. So because of that, this is the upcoming challenge that we are facing for the coming years. Meet growing, demanding consumer expectations, face sustainability issues, but at the same time, be affordable. So that's the challenge for Cial Paris 2022.
So I'm sure you found that as interesting as I did. I certainly learned a lot from those Cial Insights studies, which will be present, of course, at the Cial in Paris in October. And so to find out more about what's going to be happening at the Cial, back to you, Audrey.
Thank you, Alex. Indeed, beyond the trade offer of the event, we strive to work on a cutting-edge program through different animation spaces in resonance with sector trends. The trade offer is broad during 5 days, from Saturday the 15th till Wednesday the 19th of October. We are expecting to welcome more than 7,000 exhibitors from all around the world. 400,000 products are spread in 10 sectors to allow 300,000 professionals from 200 countries to find what they're looking for. Participating in Cial Paris means more business by meeting the right people in the ecosystem with the right tools to collaborate effectively and generate a quick return on investment. Coming to Cial Paris means more innovation and discovering tomorrow's products and meeting those who invent them. Coming to Cial Paris means more competitiveness and staying one step ahead of your market by having access to events and talk that make sense. Finally, coming to Cial Paris means more empowerment. By our choices, decisions, and exchanges, we are contributing to and becoming actors in the change of food. To support our participants and give them keys, we develop tools and an omni-channel approach to help them 365 days a year. This is why we developed the marketplace, which, in first hand, is the digital catalogue of Cial Paris and a powerful matchmaking tool.
Now let's hear about Cial's marketplace, the business platform CXMP. It's a great growth lever accompanying the Cial. We're going to hear about it with Sébastien Garnier. You're the CXMP Director and Head of Marketplace. Over to you.
Hello. As previously mentioned, the digital transformation of the food industry is underway. In particular, the access to product via different channels like e-commerce website or marketplace. And to support this necessary digitalization of the food trade, ComExplosion has launched and developed a B2B marketplace for its food, but also for fashion and sport trade shows. So, those CXMP is the B2B marketplace for Cial. Our ambition is to allow our exhibitor vendor and visitor buyer to meet and to do business all year long between two editions of our physical trade shows. They will do business thanks to a tool that it's both easy to use and efficient. CXMP is the first marketplace from the event sector to offer a 100% omni-channel experience in connection with the trade shows. If CXMP is above all a marketplace, it's also the platform that will host the entire catalog of the trade shows, so of the SIAL. Exhibitor will present their brand for free, of course, and an unlimited number of products with an unlimited number of photo, of video by product. They will also take advantage of the networking features by accessing the entire list of visitor buyer, which will be registered on the platform. On that side, buyer will be able to find the entire exhibitor list and, of course, the entire exhibitor product catalog in order to prepare their visit to the trade shows in the best possible way. They will also be able to take advantage of the networking part by requesting meeting to all the buyers in the platform. For exhibitor, access to the catalog feature will be, of course, free, and they will be visible to the visitor audience. But they can switch, if they want, to a paid subscription at any time, and they will do business freely with the European buyer at the trade shows. Access is, of course, completely free for buyers.
Now, I'm sure if, like me, you've been at the SIAL, you were amazed at how much is going on, so many different spaces, so many different stands. So in order to find out a little more about this very rich program of the SIAL this year, I'll hand back to Audrey.
Thank you, Alex. As I mentioned earlier, we want to help our attendants to decipher the challenges of the sector in order to take one step back, get the global picture, and discover innovation and tomorrow talents. SIAL Innovation is a key animation at the show. This observatory of the food innovation, a world reference for more than 20 years, is designed in partnership with Protein XTC, which select about 800 products out of more than 2,800 applications. Showcased in a space with a French touch, scenography, this selection is all the more exciting since all over the world, players in the agri-food industry are innovating to meet these new demands for change. They dare to reinvent themselves by developing new products with new ingredients, new packaging for healthier food for tomorrow. The most inspiring novelties will be revealed and awarded with 15 thematic trophies. In addition to the winners by sector, we will have the pleasure of presenting an On the Change Award, a Startup Award, and a Public Choice Award. So save the date, as the nominees of the awards by category will be revealed on the 15th of September at a press conference. And obviously, during SIAL Paris, the 15th of October. At SIAL Paris, we welcome 650 startups at the show. And for the first time, about hundreds of them will be gathered on the SIAL Startup Village. This selection is made in partnership with Startup Sesame and various food tech around the world. The guarantee of discovering startups whose vision aligns with the theme On the Change. Innovating companies, French and international, less than 5 years old, who are exhibiting at SIAL Paris for the first time. Thanks to SIAL Invest, event within the event, they will have the chance to pitch to a panel of investors and startup accelerators to get financial support and boost their business. The Cial Talk space is a place for exchanges, across views of experts on current and future issues. Different formats, such as interviews, debates, roundtables, conferences, will make it possible to understand, analyze, but above all, exchange around the challenges of tomorrow's food. The food transition, which is the backbone of the theme, Cial Paris, Own the Change. 70 hours of content with intervention by experts and chefs around topics and two main axes, changes and challenges. Changes such as new food distribution formats, processes, or packaging solutions in synergy with All4Pack Emballage Paris. Challenges such as traceability issues, the consequences of soaring commodities prices, and obviously adaptability to climate issues. Cial highlights the restaurant professions through its program at La Cuisine, a true source of inspiration for chefs and the promise of a unique gastronomic experience for visitors to the show. The opportunity for exchanges with specialists and trendsetters. So two main animations, an ephemeral gastronomic restaurant with a menu signed by star chefs in collaboration with promising young ones, and animation and culinary demonstration performed by talented chefs whose achievements will echo the challenges of the current food and theme addressed within Cial Talks. Future Lab invites Cial Paris visitors on a real journey into the future and discover the food industry in 2030. An immersive, impactful, and forward-looking experience that will address the major trends from the earth to the table, from land to your plate. 3 activities will focus on the future from 3 perspectives: agriculture, retail, and dining. So once again, we expect to see you at Cial Paris, Paris Nord, Villepinte, from the 15th to the 19th of October. Please take your registration now. We will welcome you to the press lounge with our press agency, 14 Septembre. And Cial Insight content is available upon request.
Thank you very much indeed, Audrey. It all sounds very exciting. I'm looking forward to it, as I'm sure you are. And I'm now going to hand over to Nicolas to say a few words of goodbye.
First of all, I would like to say that we are a little bit moved and impatient to welcoming you on Cial Paris. After 4 years, it will be such a pleasure to be with you and welcome you. So we are also proud of the great work that has been prepared by the team. And as you have seen during this conference, we have a lot of content to share. Now, we are more than ever passionate about the food business, and we are very confident that, that in our collective ability to face the challenges. We believe that the long-term goal is very clear: to reach a meaningful and sustainable food chain. And we are committed to help every company to act and to be part of it. Let's be humble. If the challenges are well identified, many solutions are yet to be invented. And let's make sure that the powerful collective dynamic of Cial Paris will bring some significant solutions. So lots to share on Cial Paris. Can't wait to see you there. Thank you.